and college kids from LA County, and I showed them the warning labels from the FDA, what our Surgeon General said, from Colorado, Connecticut, from Canada, and then also about the psychosis clinic in the United Kingdom, Cannabis Psychosis Clinic. There's also the Schizophrenia Society of Canada, and they have cannabisandpsychosis.ca. That's like a government site. Okay, so they acknowledge what's going on. And so I told these kids, and I said, and where's your protection here in California? And they said, it makes them feel like people don't care about them as human beings, that our policymakers don't care about them, that they wouldn't even warn them. And then they said that at their schools, that some of them are getting federal funding, and the administrators and the professors or teachers are saying, we're afraid of losing federal funding, so we're just not going to say anything at all. And to that, I say, they should lose federal funding if they don't say anything, because this is how dire it is to a developing brain. This is how, and they're being marketed to, and nobody is telling them about the risks. When I was a teenager, I grew up in Washington State, and marijuana was just everywhere, and nobody really thought anything about it. We didn't know if it was good, if it was bad, whatever. And so one time I was getting high and with a friend, and all of a sudden I had an experience where I didn't know where I was, and I didn't know who I was with, and it was so scary. And then I'd remember, and then I'd forget, and then I'd remember, and then I'd forget, and it was just back and forth like this for quite some time. And I was in the laundry room of my family home with my best friend.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know where I was. It was so scary. And it wasn't until just a few years ago that I found out there's a name for it, and that's called cannabis-induced psychosis. That's where a person loses touch with reality from their use of marijuana. Now, my friend was fine, but I was not. And that really illustrates how it is with marijuana. Some people can use it and they can be perfectly fine. But there are some of us who cannot, and we cannot even have a small amount. And for us, for me and my brother, we're genetically predisposed to serious mental illness. And so anyone who has mental illness in their family should stay away from marijuana, because it can trigger a psychotic experience that would not have happened otherwise. So that's what happened to me. It never happened before, and it never happened again. And I didn't like it at all, so I stayed away from marijuana. But my brother, he liked that feeling. He liked it a lot. He said it was like being in the fun house. And so he did it pretty much every day through middle school, high school, college, graduate school, and he was fully addicted. And this is low potency marijuana. And then when he got out of graduate school, that's when things really started to show. He wasn't just an addict. He wasn't able to, his brain wasn't working so well. He wasn't able to pass his exams. And then he was introduced to cocaine, and he thought, oh, well, everything went so well with marijuana. Why not try cocaine? And so, and then he was introduced to crack. And then he loved crack, and all of a sudden he was homeless and addicted, living on the streets. And he was suffering delusions. He thought that the CIA was following him. He thought he was John the Baptist, and he didn't want help from anybody. But he had gotten in trouble so many times with the law. He was in jail 18 times, and finally it got to 3 strikes and you're out. And so he did not want to go to prison. That was no. So he chose treatment. And so he is a really good example of someone who was forced into getting treatment, even though he didn't really want to. He would have continued to live what he calls the party life. And I don't know how anyone can describe living outside in the streets of Seattle, Washington as the party life. What a horrible experience, but he wanted to stay that way. And so I'm really grateful that he was forced into treatment, because it saved him.
Now, Heidi, why do you keep